leopards were actually haunting their villages and things like that, but I don't know how true that is. Then you also see, because electricity was the biggest problem, that ISOC gave this generator to power the radio station, the community radio station, Sindhu, to get information to the people because they had no other form of communication at all. So based on all these studies, I kind of broke it down into, we need to have this, so we heard from Nepal police how you need to have these communication platforms, right? But for those to work, then we also heard how the internet has to be strong. And when we talk about all these ICT services, so that's your second layer. And then, but all that has to be, you need to have a good basis of a robust infrastructure. So not just about the telecom infrastructure, you need to think about the roads as well, because if you need to deploy engineers to fix the infrastructure, the telecom infrastructure, and they can't get there, then that's poor planning as well. So we talk in emergency communication. It's very important to highlight situational awareness, so all multiple agencies can see a common operating picture of what's happening. And I think that's lacking here, especially for first response as well, so with your dispatch and your incident reporting. Then at the ICT layer, you need to consider about your business continuity planning and your restoration of services. These are two elements that we thought was important that fit into your work plan. Then at the infrastructure level, you need to do your survivability and availability assessments to understand what the resilience of your infrastructure is and the risks, and then come up with plans for that. So I'll try to, so three key recommendations made in this report was, one is assess the telecom survivability and availability in support of a government emergency communication network, and that's in the NTA, the National National Emergency Telecommunications Plan from 2013. Then rapid restoration, so access points and transmission lines are the most vulnerable, so you need to come up with a plan. So WiMAX is quite lucrative in the mountainous areas because it doesn't have any, you can go across mountains with with wireless microwave connections without any interruption. But at the flat urban layers, you're looking at more fiber, which is more robust, and then also you need less power rather than compared to the power that you need to power a microwave link. So these issues with like how dealing with power would be can be dealt with. And then the second is, of course, the situational awareness and the incident command and control that is most important. So with the risk and coverage mappings, so you need to do your risk analysis, right? So your vulnerability, hazard, exposure. A lot of these risk analysts know this method. Then you need to identify, what are your alerting areas, for example, and then you overlay with that with your telecom infrastructure to see whether it actually covers the area. Because most of the time when you talk about covering, the telcos will give you the numbers according to the population density. But if the like Nepal police, for example, is relying on mobile phones to communicate a landslide that is outside of the coverage, then they are in trouble. So you need to look at not just the population density covering, but the geographic covering based on the risks. Then the next thing that you need to do is a stepwise refinement and risk assessment. Basically, it's a participatory exercise where it could be at institutional level, it could be at a national level, where each of the institutions who are stakeholders part of providing emergency communications or using emergency communications should go through this exercise to identify your vulnerabilities and then come up with a strategy plan. So Rasta is a very common tool that is used in this aspect. Then once you have done your risk assessment and then done your availability and survivability assessments, that would provide you enough knowledge to derive your business continuity and disaster recovery plans. And the business continuity business continuity and disaster recovery plans, instead of coming up with a regulatory kind of an approach, what NTA has suggested is better you come up with some guidelines that people can voluntarily adopt. And then you can also provide them with some self-evaluation and then some guidelines to institutionalize it. So these mechanisms are there, it's a matter of just putting them into practice. Then about the infrastructure best practices, we've heard stories about like how the telecom, the shells that protect the telecom infrastructure were damaged, and some by fires and some by just because they were very unstable. But in that case, how do they come up with new quick shelters for their equipment so they can restore the services, especially if it's an earthquake followed by a rains, right? And then so you need to protect your equipment to provide the continuity. So these kind of guidelines are important, and I think, I mean, even though we heard that the current earthquake is probably not a good platform for designing these, but it might be a good start to at least start there and then try to debate on it, and through probably, I think the NetComs or the some ETC might be a good forum to facilitate that. Then following that, so we've already tackled the infrastructure and then now the BCDRP with the ICT resilience part. After that, you need to identify what kind of information, risk information you need and what technologies you're going to use. And when you do that exercise, you will identify what are the most important technologies that should be part of your emergency communications arsenal, right? So we try to simplify the situational awareness and then the incident management by using standards, interoperable standards, data standards. So highly recommended are using GIS, the Commonality Protocol for warnings, and then the SITREP, the Situational Reporting Emergency Data Exchange Language Data Platform, and the resource messaging. With these four combined, you can come up with a very interoperable system. So if police wants to maintain their own system and then the NEOC wants to have their own system, as long as everybody agrees that we are going to exchange information using these protocols, they can talk to each other. And then you have a common operating picture, right? And to keep it simple, we don't need to provide people with instructions exactly do A, B, C, D. People are smart. All you have to equip them is what is the scenario, and then from their training, they know how to trigger and what to do. So we just call it, cap on a map. Just give them the incident on a map, and so they know, for example, if there's a landslide on a road, and then if this operating picture is seen by the health department, it's intuitive for them not to dispatch an ambulance on that road because it's not, you can't save any lives on the other side. So they will be better prepared. So that's what we mean by situational awareness. You don't need lots of fancy, TV screens and people giving information. So this project is one that we are doing with SCAP funding to improve the situational awareness for improving the institutional responsiveness in Philippines, Myanmar, and Maldives. And the idea is to kind of keep spreading this initiative. For incident reporting, so we've done work like in Timor-Leste. It's very simple, where like you have the Twitter feeds and you can see the feeds on the map, and that gives you a nice, good common operating picture. Then also, I heard that the telcos would like to have some system where they could manage their resources, their staff, knowing where they are, maintaining documents of protocols like their assets and warehouse. So this project that we did with the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, IFRC has this platform where they manage all their volunteers and their staff in each of the countries for each of the societies, and it's a single server that is shared by throughout the world. Each society can maintain their own data and the instance, and it cannot be seen by the others, but an umbrella organization like IFRC can see everybody else's data. So to put this in perspective, maybe NTA can be this umbrella organization, and while the telcos, because we heard like you need to keep track of who has what equipment, where can we latch on to, or who can't to carry our packets. So these can be all mapped out, I think, using this same resource management system by just changing some of the words. So sum it all up, saving lives, right? So we need to, I think Nepal needs to focus on their business continuity disaster recovery plans, come up with good guidelines so people can institutionalize them. Then focus on a robust government emergency communication network, right? So if you know in certain remote areas, SmartTel is the strong partner, then that needs to be taken note of. And then if you know there are VHF sets out there with the police or amateur users, those should be taken note of and should be part of the whole emergency communication experience within the government. Real-time data is important, so that's why we need to have the rapid restoration of access to telecoms. So that is if there is no power, to be able to provide power through solar or generators, recharging stations, even access points for internet. So that would be part of your REACT program. I mean, you can have mobilized vehicles, or you can have trained staff that can be deployed, and with some kind of benchmark saying, okay, we're going to have everything up in 12 hours. So, and then you should regularly practice these or make them part of your training exercises with any of the organizations. So that will improve your real-time data, right? And then when you have the real-time data, you have a common operating picture. And when you have a common operating picture, you can save lives. And then also so for the business continuity disaster recovery planning, you need to understand your survivability and availability. So that would contribute towards that study. And also knowing your survivability and availability, you also know how robust your emergency communication network is. So with that, I think I would like to conclude my talk.
So thank you, Mr. Baitanaz from Lorne is here for presenting the research findings. We don't have time for the question and answer, sorry for that, because we'll have a coffee break. You can ask if you have any queries to those presenters. We have seen actually, based on our experiences during this April earthquake, we are very happy that our security agencies, our government services, they utilize this ICT. That's why no one has died because of not having medicine, and no one has faced the starvation because of not having any relief material. At least being a least developed country, we managed to keep that minimum level of rescue and relief services intact, and ICT helped us a lot. And as you know that we had also prepared post-disaster needs assessment report within a month, and because of the ICT, otherwise ICT, security agencies and government people, other international and national organizations, they helped us to collect data. Based on that data, we completed that PDNA report, and based on that PDNA report, we managed to mobilize more than $4 billion for reconstruction and rehabilitation of earthquake-affected areas. So, and impact of this earthquake has many impacts. The impact of this event is like acceptance of ICT is wider, is more. Now people are using more ICT because of this earthquake, because they see that they need, even in the very difficult time. And level of awareness is also increased. Like Dr. Saab already presented. So, like Rajat, you see that people, even in remote area, they started to use Twitter, Facebook, and also become detective in its terminology. So, that level of awareness of using social media technology is also increased because of this event. And another part is good governance. Good governance, chances of having good governance also increased. because of the use of ICT and social media during this time. And the effectiveness and efficiency of service delivery, whether it's a security agency or government, or even other non-governmental organization, has been increased because of the use of these technologies, and people are aware, so you have to deliver your services on time. And the transparency, ultimately you need to have more transparent system and government, and because of the use of ICT during this earthquake and this disaster time, people need more information, and government is compelled to become more transparent. So, with these words and all, good presentation. Sorry for not providing them enough time for the discussion and also their presentation. And I'd like to thank all 4 presenters: Anandraj Kanal, Dr. Rajiv Suppa, Suryanarayan Srestha, Numan Vaidyanath, for their nice presentation. And also I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me. I was sorry for being late here. And also all the presenters, participants from Nepal and outside Nepal for being here. Wish you a very happy stay in Kathmandu and wish you all the best during this conference. Thank you very much.